Okay. So contestants, you have 10 minutes on the clock. Brandy, do you want to give them your normal weekly advice?
Yes, my normal weekly advice is go ahead and take your headphones off and just read it aloud to yourself. Get all the enthusiasm and energy you can gather together, and then we'll call you back in when it's 10 minutes are done.
You guys know I talk a long time. It'll probably be more than 10. Goodbye, contestants, and we'll be talking to you later. All right, let's meet our 4 publishers that are judging, and who's going to give. One of these publishers is giving out that traditional publishing contract. Let's start with Kim Davis from Madville Press. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? What drew you to writing as a profession?
I am from Texas. I'm pretty old. I graduated from high school in 1978. So back when we still had teachers who had the time to teach us something. I had a wonderful teacher in high school, and I give him all the credit, really, because he really forced us to learn how to write good sentences. We learned everything. And we were in the same room with the same man for 2 hours at a time. Yes. He was amazing. He was ambidextrous. He'd start writing with his left hand and then change hands. You couldn't read either side, of course, but and he would bleed all over the paper, and he'd sit us down to write a sentence, like some example he'd given us. And we would go sit down and we would write, and then we would get in line and he would read our paragraph and scribble all over it and send us back to rewrite it. And this would go on like day after day, and we really learned to write. So Vincent D'Amico, he died last year.
I truly I connect with that story. I had a teacher that did the same thing for me. In fact, oh, she's dying right now, but I let her know that I was doing this show, and she was like, I knew you were gonna make it. It's like, yes. Oh my God, you just sent me a letter to tell me that. I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know why I told that story. I apologize. I'm gonna be more of a host and less of a chatterbox.
No, but I mean, it's the teachers are important, and they deserve the credit. They deserve some credit, and I'm sad that today our teachers don't get the chance to work with the young people. They don't have the time with the testing and stuff. So,
and what press are you from?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madville Publishing. We're based in Denton, Texas. It says Lake Dallas on our nameplate, but it's really Denton, Texas. And yeah, fiction, nonfiction, and poetry is what we publish.
Thank you. Deborah Franklin, it's nice to have you back this week. Can you tell us what publishing house you're from, and a little bit about yourself, and what drew you to the written word as a profession?
Well, good evening, everybody. I am with Deborah Franklin Publishing. I know that's a creative name, isn't it? I know. Well, we did shorten it to DFP, but and we specialize in journals, memoirs, and self-help books. So that's pretty much where we are, and we're getting ready to open up some new avenues coming down the pike. What drew me to writing is that was always my passion. That was always something that I did. That was my escape from the world. That's how I would I'm either sitting in the corner reading something, or I'm sitting over just writing something. And so that's what really drew me. And I guess that's because I did major in communication. So I can definitely relate to having that professor that fussed at us and basically, y'all took out spell check. We couldn't use spell check. You had to really know how to spell dealing with this man, and a doggone dictionary that had dust on it. So you literally had to go to the dictionary, blow the dust off, and use it. So those of y'all that went to traditional journalism schools, you know what I'm talking about. So just being able to have that experience really opened my eyes up to become just jumping into this world of writing and publishing. And I think I missed one thing. What else? What was the second question? I'm good. Okay, I'm good.
You're good. Oh, right. We're going to move on to Stephanie Larkin. Can you tell us what publishing house you're from, a little bit about yourself, and what drew you to writing as a profession?
Sure. I'm Stephanie Larkin. I'm from New York with Red Penguin Books, and we publish fiction, nonfiction, children's, and a lot of anthologies that people get their start, like poetry and short stories. And I'm going to go with Kim tonight and do a little teacher shout out. I was taught by nuns my whole life, so I had, like, grammar and sentence structure kind of forced into me. But the one who really kind of set the stage, who I heard recently is still alive, Sister Grace Avila is 98 years old. She's still working, by the way. She's still teaching. She still scares me, by the way. But she taught me outlining. And the first time I ever had to write a book, I did it all on like index cards, the way I was taught, and released my first book in like 3 weeks because Sister Grace Avila. So shout out to teachers everywhere. They really have, I love hearing from authors that they're inspired by their teachers.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you one more question that I didn't ask the other two. What are you looking for tonight in those 3 paragraphs?
Oh, good question. Loved reading the excerpt, and it's really rough because I know the whole story now because of the outlines, and now I know the whole chapter, and now I'm like supposed to judge on a piece, and that you really make us work every week on us. You really make us judges work hard. Everyone is so different, but I'm kind of looking forward to hearing them read them themselves, because it's one thing for me to read it and it's one thing for me to listen. So that's going to be really exciting.
All right. And last but not least, I'm missing somebody, right? There's 4 of you.
Yeah, I am.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I was going to start with you. In fact.
It's especially okay since I completely flaked last week because apparently I don't know how to work my calendar. I don't know what happened there, but so I'm so sorry that I missed last Friday. And it's great to read the sample chapters. That was really enjoyable. The teachers I'm going to give a shout out to were actually my parents, both of whom were professors, but that is also why I, as a child and teenager and young person, I was a voracious reader, reading everything I could get my hands on in terms of fiction and plays. And we would do things like act out Death of a Salesman as a family together, or Antigone, but I just read all the time. I grew up in the middle of the woods, and my high school graduation year was 1980. So that's how old I am. And so what was on TV? Nothing. No video games, nothing to do. And since I was in the middle of the woods, my friends weren't there either, except for my dog. And yeah, so it's reading, I think, is why I'm so interested in language and story. And I'm the founder and publisher at Yes Yes Books. And we're a traditional publishing house, and we primarily publish poetry and fiction.
Okay, so that is our judges. What are you looking for tonight in those 3 paragraphs that they're selecting to represent their whole book?
I'm excited to see the paragraphs that they choose and how they relate to what's going on in those sample chapters, because there was a lot of just very interesting character development and plot development that happened even in those samples. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what's the relationship, what do they pick as their representative paragraphs, and how is that related to the sample that I've already read.
Okay, now we know what the judges are looking for. Deborah Franklin or Kim Davis, do you want to tell us what you're looking for in those paragraphs tonight?
I'll go. One thing that I'll be looking for is if they keep the momentums, because I want to see if they read the way I heard it in my head. Because so many times you're like, "Ooh, this is mountain," but then what the real interpretation is could be different. So I want to see if it matches what what was in my head matches what they're coming out, how they'll read it.
Thank you, judges, for your input tonight. And hey, our contestants are back in the studio. I can see them all on camera. Hello, welcome back. Brandy, can you tell them what's at stake with this week's eliminations?
I can indeed. This is the week we will eliminate and get down to just 2 authors competing for 1 traditional publishing contract. Most authors dream of a traditional publishing contract and have very difficult time getting past the gatekeepers. We are helping them bypass those and get straight in front of the publishers. So it is indeed a one-of-a-kind of experience.
Now that our contestants are back, and you didn't exactly hear what the judges are looking for, trying to keep it fair, right? But you will hear about our guest judges. Guest judges, let's go ahead and start introducing yourselves. It'll give you contestants a moment to look over those 3 paragraphs that you have chose to represent your work and see if they fit with what you really want to say to the world about your story. Okay, guest judge, let's start with Mary Helen Sheriff, who is the author of Eve's Road Trip and also the founder of Bookish Road Trip. Mary Helen Sheriff, can you tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your writing career and just a tiny bit about what you're looking for in those paragraphs tonight?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me as a guest judge this week. This is a really fun show, and it's really neat to watch this process unfold. I have my debut novel came out in 2020. It's Boop and Eve's Road Trip. It's a women's fiction novel about an 80-year-old grandmother and her granddaughter who's in college who go on a road trip together looking for a missing relative. But more recently, I had a book come out with Red Penguin Press, and one of our judges down below was the publisher. It's called Launchpad, The Countdown to Marketing Your Book, and it's part of a 3-book series. Jade Wilnona had a chapter in the book as well on event planning, so that's pretty neat to all be in the same room together. But I also have a workbook out called The Ultimate Book Launch Workbook. So those are kind of the things I've been doing the last few years in the writing world. And as far as what I'm looking for tonight, I would say voice and, just kind of like that special spark that makes you want to keep turning the pages and makes the story feel unique to that writer. You're on mute.
Thank you so much. We're going to go next to Grace Cavallari. She is the author of 26 books and chapters of poetry and chapbooks of poetry. She also does American stage plays, and she is received the 2013 George Garrett Award, the Penn Fiction Award, the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Award. Okay, if that's an award, she's got it. Okay. And then that'll take care of the award section. She also, her podcast is one of the first podcasts to be heard on the moon, and it is supported by the Library of Congress. I feel like I've said everything about you, but if you would like to go ahead and tell us a bit more about yourself and about why you write, why you write. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then lastly, what you're expecting for those 3 paragraphs you're going to hear tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. This looks like a really unique experience. I've never seen anything like it. Congratulations. I believe that writers are born, and I've interviewed 3,000 writers, and every one of them says, oh, I have written as a child. And I always say, no, really? Because everyone I know who's a writer has always written as a child. So I believe that we come out wired a certain way to perceive the world in language, and that's the way we understand and clarify the randomness of everything we see. It's our paradigm is language. And I think all writers are born that way, frankly. And I am looking for clarity. I'm looking for someone who's in control of the story, strong character, and a situation which becomes a plot. Not to rush right into the plot, but to have a situation first that becomes the plot, so that there is an arc in the story that starts. But character means everything to me because I'm a playwright. And I think that if you have strong characters, they make the situation and not the other way around. So I'm all ready to go. I'm very excited about this.
Our last guest judge tonight is Angela Anderson, and she's also known as the literary midwife. She has literary and editorial services in the professional and CEO of Angela Anderson Presents. She has a deep passion for all things bookish, publishing, and literary. Angela Anderson, can you tell us a bit about yourself, why you love the written word, and what you're looking for in those 3 paragraphs tonight?
Oh my goodness. First of all, I am super duper excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be a guest judge. Yes, I am Angela Anderson's, aka the Literary Midwife. I have 3 amazing shows, Angela's Literary Cafe, Angela's Literary Tea, and Fun Friday with the Fun Friday crew. I love all things literary, from just building that connection between authors and readers, to teaching about all things bookish, all of that good stuff as well. And what I am looking forward to tonight, I am looking for that wow factor book hangover moment that just grabs your attention and wants you to continue reading, like that one more chapter type of read or one more page type of read as well, is what I'm looking for.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, guest judges. Well, it's coming down to that moment of truth. And you know, when it gets scary and a little hairy, I hand it off to Brandy. Brandy, go ahead and pick that first contestant to read those 3 paragraphs.
Tonight, I am going to pick Miss Lisa to be first. So I would like to hear from you, ma'am.
Thank you, Brandy. I'll be reading 2 random paragraphs and a short passage of dialogue. I'd asked Brody how they killed him, my confidant and ally Michael Horvath. He said he was already dead when they dumped him, shot most likely. These people. I needed to know how this syndicate worked, how they had eyes on everything. People planted in cars, city streets, rooftops, hovering behind 2-way glass, observing the pawns they're about to move, the lives they were about to destroy. I now knew that these ghosts, these untouchable shadows, were behind the Edgar Heights murders from 10 years ago, and that Roberta Fenning had seen something that made her a loose end. Something changed. I had to know now. It was no longer a matter of choice. No, for the 100th time, Dad, I wasn't hungry, even though the breadfruit and fish he'd prepared looked amazing. I heard Bunny Whaler from a car radio outside and could see the palm trees lining our forbidden stretch of Laura Beach on Majuro. He put his hands up and backed away. Of course, we didn't know how to deal with each other. I was a baby just about last time he saw me, a gawky 10-year-old. And now, 8 years later, I just set the stage for a takedown of a corrupt global crime syndicate. Hard to believe, especially for me. Look, you're strong and that's good because you're going to need that strength. Wait a minute, I'm not agreeing to anything. Listen to me. The strongest people don't find ways to compartmentalize their feelings or push them down. They let themselves be cut, let themselves be wounded, and they use it. That's exactly what I want you to do. I was only half listening at this point. We're going to play tennis tomorrow morning and practice. What is the deal with tennis? I don't even like tennis. He rose from the stool and leaned against the counter, pulling something from his pocket he didn't want me to see. You need to decide, Thea, whether you're going to walk through that door or not. Michael Horvath passed you the baton and gave you the evidence you need to see it through. Michael Horvath gave me scraps of evidence, crumbs if anything. And what's my incentive? I've already lost so much. Besides, I don't have a way in. Oh, but you do. Tennis is where they do all their negotiations, all their dirty dealings out in the wide open air. Okay. Yeah, they play doubles every Saturday. It's good exercise for old men, and there's a sub on call if someone can't make it. No one cares how good or bad the sub is. These people aren't there to play or to win. So you're grooming me to be a tennis sub? But they won't talk business while I'm there. No, but they'll see you around. They'll see you play, see your youth and your agility. Ew, is that what this is about? No, for God's sake, they're going to want to recruit you. When they meet you, discover your wit, your insight, your backbone and resolve. They'll be fighting over you like jackals with a rabbit. Thank you.
Oh my God. I have never wanted to play tennis, but I've never been so scared of the tennis court in my life. Okay, no, I'm gonna just sit here and obsess about that. So I'm gonna hand it off to the judges. Judges, would you like to say what you liked or didn't like? Please remember that you should also include any notes you have from Lisa Toll's chapter as well in what you're saying tonight.
Where do you want this, Wilnona? On the chat?
No. You just go ahead and unmic yourself and speak. Say your piece if you'd like.
I think it's very fast moving. I like her plotting. I like the energy in the work. I found it not credible about the tennis court scene as a possibility, because I do play tennis. You don't get to say much when you're playing tennis. So it seems a little bit, that was not based in reality for me, but I think she's very gifted and very, very smart.
Thank you, Grace. Stephanie, KMA,
Sure.
Deborah.
I'd love to pipe up. Lisa, loved that. More than actually, I liked your chapter. Just because my feeling about the chapter was I didn't get as much. Not that I think Grace said it so well about not wanting to hear an entire plot, but at least to know that there is a plot brewing. And the chapter that I read didn't have enough plot brewing, and I'm very much at a disadvantage because I know what your story's about. And I actually am super intrigued by the whole syndicate as well as the personal evolution of your protagonist. I love where it's going, and I didn't get all of that in chapter 1. It just seemed a little like, dead body, runaway kind of a thing. But what you just read gave me inklings into this world that now I'm intrigued. Who's this syndicate? What's going on? What did you know about? I also got some nice character development in there because I'm learning more about your protagonist. So I definitely liked your choice of paragraphs even more than your first chapter. I've never played tennis, so I don't know if one could have a conversation or not. I would suppose I couldn't have a conversation while playing tennis. But really, really appreciated hearing a little more of that storyline going on, because that was something I kind of felt was missing from the chapter, but loved hearing it in your excerpt right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Deborah Franklin, Kim Davis, KMA. Any thoughts?
I'll go. I don't have a lot to add to what Stephanie said. She really covered pretty much what I wanted to say. But I thought the chapter was very well written. I thought what you read here, as Stephanie said, was richer. In the chapter, I got a kind of a tropey feel. Oh, dead mother, teens caught in the house with the dead mother and being framed for murder. And it didn't. That's all I got from the sample chapter that you sent. Really, not all I got. Okay, I found there were some smart things. I thought that the vomit on the stairs. Oh, look, there's some evidence she's going to leave behind. That's interesting, right? And what else was interesting? Let's see.
I love how you're so professional. You have it written up and sitting right there.
Yeah. I think in the first chapter, there are a few places where you kind of need to give a little bit more, but yeah. I thought it was very good. I didn't understand. Starting as you did in medias res with the middle of a text message stream wasn't maybe the best place to start, but I thought it was a good example. I liked it a lot. I think it's got energy, and I definitely want to read more and see where this story goes.
Guest judges. Oh, I'm sorry. Guest judges, can you give us a bit from the reader section of the world? Go ahead, Mary.
I liked your sensory descriptions throughout. I thought that the language was very rich, and I love the way that you were able to explain and give some background and the things that you were reading out loud, but it was in the character's voice, and I thought that was a good way to be able to do that. One thing that I noticed when I was reading the chapter, your first section was in text messaging. And because I had no context, it was a little hard to follow. Maybe having more tags with the characters' names could have helped make that more easy, but it was like really being thrown in because I'm in the middle of a text string. I don't even know who the characters are or what's going on. And I thought that might maybe make it help a little.
Angela, and then we'll move on to our next contestant.
Yes, I am with Mary with the text messages, or what have you. But from what she read, the paragraphs that she read on tonight, it was interesting. It actually gave me that lean in effect, like, ooh, like, wanting to hear more. So it is one of those that, based on what she read tonight, I would want to turn the page to find out like what's next, what's going to happen next. So it did kind of give me that point of reading, like, okay, I want more.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Lisa.
Thank you.
I hope you got to learn a lot, and good luck. All right. Our next contestant, Brandy, is
Dr. Mike. Come on down. Let's hear from you.
There we go. Once again, I'm not sure that I understood the assignment, but I can blame my cognitive function on that one. Anyway, so the chapter that I sent in wasn't my first chapter. And as a result,
Dr. Mike, you cut out. You're back on mute.
okay. Anyway, can you hear me now? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to read straight through on a chapter that has about 3 paragraphs, not much more than that. And just let it go at that. The character has been tasked with interviewing some of this person in my books, witnesses. And so he goes to see her sister, his sister. The gate guard had insisted on calling ahead once I'd shown my shield. Now I was trudging up a long, curving driveway to a very nice house where a woman stood on the top step with her hands on her hips and a scowl on her face. She was Harry's sister. I had expected something like this. It wasn't just a nice house. It was a seriously nice house. It was a seriously nice house on a nice, quiet cul-de-sac in a seriously nice neighborhood. And it was still the nicest house on the block. Is he dead? She asked before I reached the bottom step. Harry? No, ma'am. Attaboy, Harry. I was hoping to speak with you, Mrs. Carlyle, if you have a moment or two. Are you kidding? I got lots of moments. Nothing but moments. Around here, there's plenty of moments. Beg pardon? Bird in the gilded cage, Special Agent. Look across the street. Look down the street. You've attracted the Homeowners Association. They're on full alert. What is it that you want? Across the street, a man had stepped out on the front porch and stood gazing across the street with his arms folded on his chest. 2 lots down the street, a minivan sat at the curb. 2 men in sunglasses sat in the front seat. Sorry, ma'am. I had no idea. Don't call me ma'am, please. I'm old enough, but I still don't like it. Come on in. The damage is done already. I might as well see if it was worth it. Once on the porch, she held the door open and gestured me in ahead of her. Inside, the entry was brightly lit in soft off-white pastels. A long staircase ran up the right side of the hallway. The walls displayed tasteful and probably expensive artwork. A small sitting room opened to the left. But instead of the sitting room, she led the way down the hallway to a large open kitchen. You're here about Harry. She wasn't asking. Is this a cup of coffee conversation or a glass of wine conversation? I was wondering about Jimmy Mencarini. Oh my, it's a martini conversation. Excellent. That's it.
Well, I'm wordless. Again, this is very upsetting. Dr. Mike, you do this every week that you read. You draw someone in and then you say that's it. And you're like, but that's not fair. But again, I am only the host, so I cannot say that with any credence whatsoever. I do have to hand it off to our 4 judges. KMA, what did you think about this week's reading of the 3 paragraphs in the chapter turned in?
Yeah, Mike, I really enjoyed both the chapter and this reading. One of the things that is just tremendously enjoyable about your writing is how you build character through dialogue. That is fantastic. I loved the voice of the woman in the section that you wrote. That you read tonight. And also in the sample, and a little bit tonight in the part that you read, I really enjoy how the narrating voice also demonstrates character. That's not easy to pull off, and it was super enjoyable in the sample. There's a lot of, I wrote some notes down here, like a lot of emotion, a lot of psychological state being expressed by the way what you have the narrator observe and say essentially to themselves. And then when the narrator was describing the scene in the part that you read tonight, it was still in the voice of that character. That's fantastic. So I just enjoyed that so much.
Thank you, KMA.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stephanie, Deborah, or Kim, would you like to say anything about the reading in the chapter?
I mean, I'll just say that KMA stole my notes because you literally went through the 3 points I was going to say. And super consistent in both the chapter I read and the excerpt that you read, in that the character, I mean, every single line, even lines that other authors might use as, I hate to call them throwaway lines, but while you're describing a staircase, you manage to still develop the character. And that just came through in every single line of it. Not to mention that inkling, like Grace had meant, I don't want to hear the entire plot, but I know there's a plot going on. Every single line of it points to the fact that this is part of a bigger picture. So both your reading and the chapter I got, terrific job. Thank you.
Okay, Kim, you had something to say?
Thank you.
We'll go to our guest judges.
I believe it was very believable. I really didn't think it was fabricated. I didn't think it was artificial. I believe this is the way people talk. I liked the chapter that I read before we came here. I liked the character very much. And I was very intrigued with how the flash forward or backward was going to go to Vietnam in the chapter we read. The best thing I can say about it is that I believe it. It feels true. It doesn't feel like someone writing. It feels like something happening.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The host can't really just agree with what Kim saying. I'm just, yeah. Kim, you were going to say something?
Well, I'm agreeing with everybody. I was going to add that, there were places I saw in that dialogue, which again is very rich, as everyone's already said. I saw ways that you might just open it up just a little bit and give some description mixed in there to slow it down just a little bit, because it's so fast, it moves so quickly, it sets a pace that you're going to have a hard time maintaining, I think.
Most likely.
Jump in real quick. I love the pacing of it, and I agree with everything that everybody else said. But the pacing and the pauses, that just did it for me. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to read some more. I'm ready to hear some more. So it was awesome.
Well, I did want to mention one other thing too. I love that you're great at that last line. You're really good at finding an interesting last line to finish a section on.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Guest judges, that's Angela and Mary. You've already heard from Grace.
I just wanted to chime in and, agree with what's been said. Also to note that the humor was really fun and very understated, but I really liked the drink thing and really awesome. And then just kind of along the lines, the dialogue is spot on, terrific. I noticed when I was reading the chapter in the section called Not Good Enough, it was all dialogue. So it was kind of like two talking heads. And I would have liked some grounding around that a little bit. Who are we? Where are we? What do these people look like? And I think that might have been what Kim was getting at a few minutes ago. It's such fantastic dialogue, just a little bit of picture around it.
Angela, last person on this one.
I definitely want to say the intrigue was definitely there. I was immediately kind of pulled in and intrigued about this particular reading. I liked the painting of the picture of the surrounding scenes, like what was going on surrounding them. And then of course that the cliffhanger that he left us on. I really like that description of the different types of conversation, because based on the drink that he mentioned, you knew how intense that this conversation may go. So I thought that was kind of a unique way of explaining the level of conversation that they was about to go into. I really like that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, judges and guest judges, for that. And Brandy, you can tell us about our last contestant. It still feels weird to say after last week's elimination, our third contestant.
I know. No, it's Wolf. Wolf, we've been looking forward to it. We are looking forward to hearing your chapter excerpt, and take it away, sir.
I swear on my Men in Black honor that Mike and I did not coordinate our submissions. Yet somehow we ended up with characters with the same last name. There's some psychic author connection going on here. So this is from my novel 100, and I'm starting with the opening of the book. Mom, they'll kill me. Calvin's scream made her blood curdle. Mom, don't let them take me, Mom! Catherine stood on the front porch of her Beverly Hills house and stared at the white floor. What could she say? What could she do? She had signed the agreement during her pregnancy in 2077, 15 years ago, in her teens, when she had no clue and no cares. Her failure to live up to it may doom her son now. Towering over her, a broad-shouldered lieutenant of the enforcement department, in her impeccable blue uniform, handed over a writ of attachment and a report with the big letters SIS on top. By order of the Court of Los Angeles County, one Calvin Carlisle is hereby attached in satisfaction of your contract with the Reproduction Services Administration for failure to maintain the required social interaction score. Okay. The next segment takes place in the police wagon bringing the boys to the re-education. The William Tell overture cartoon repeated a few times. Devin looked up but avoided eye contact. Maybe, perhaps we can form a sistership to fight evil, like in Lady of the Rings? Ollie glanced at the blonde boy across from him. You mean fellowship. Boys form fellowships. Great idea. Calvin spread the sarcasm across his comment. What a role model. Half the dykes die and the armies of men get wiped out at the end. My mom's a big shot. I don't need no help from no fucking fellowship. Paul held out his hand, palm down, into the space between the two benches and alternated looks between the two boys sitting in the corners next to him. We form our own fellowship, you know. Let Loudmouth fend for himself. Devon and Ollie laid their hands on his. He shook them up and down. Like the Three Musketeers, all for one, one for all. Calvin kept his stare on the back doors. He wanted to lift his hand. I don't need them. I'm Calvin Carlyle, son of Caddy Carlyle. No one can touch me. And the last segment is the end of the chapter, which introduces two key characters. One of the black uniforms, a petite brunette with a ponytail, caught his eye. She slowly scanned the boys. As her face turned toward him, his heart jumped. Mom, or her younger sister. Big gray eyes and smiling pink lips sent Calvin's blood pulsing. He no longer paid attention to the speech. Behind him, the bang of a metal sliding bolt preceded the creaking of a green door opening. He turned and gaped. A tall guard in her 30s with short dark blonde hair and a high nose pointed inside. This way, please. As he approached, she stared at his crotch with cold, deep-set eyes. Before entering, Calvin stopped, turned his head, and took one last look at the younger copy of his mother still standing in the courtyard. The blonde took the opportunity to gently stroke her nightstick across the bulge in his pants. A shudder raced down his spine. Her name badge read, Ingrid Holtz.
Thank you. I just want to say it is now making me reconsider my position in society. Am I protected enough not to end up where he was? That's all I want to know right now. But for the judges, or will you be protected enough not to get eliminated? Let's hear what the judges have to say. Stephanie Larkin, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. I was intrigued when I read the excerpt. I must admit, I was hoping you were going to read something different than the chapter, just because when I read your chapter, I wanted to know more. You really brought me right in with your chapter. I got the characters. I was like, what the heck is going on? A little bit of a hint so I could figure it out. And yeah, I want to know more now. So I was hoping for maybe you'd accidentally need something from chapter 5, so I'd find out more stuff.
Deborah Franklin?
Stephanie took the words out of my mouth this time. I really like the way it is definitely different for me. And I'm rocking and rolling, like, what's going to happen next? Am I getting ready to get caught up? So I definitely really wanted to read more, wanted to know more, but I really like the pacing of it, and how you were starting to put things together. But I mean, I definitely went into this world and was like, there's definitely a possibility here. So yeah, so I like what you did. I just really wanted to get some more.
KMA or Kim, do either of you want to say something on this? And then we're moving to our guest judges.
Okay, very quickly, I'll just say I agree. I think it's very polished and really well done. I want to know about the sister or the mother and the guard that looks like the mother. Are there clones in this world? He left me hanging with that really big question. That's where I especially want to go. But I thought it was very well done. Thank you, Wolf.
KMA, you look like you wanted to say something, so I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the pacing is great. I think there's some good explanation of how things work. I was puzzled, though. I was hoping, as was mentioned earlier, to hear paragraphs that weren't in the sample, because the sample shows Calvin to be, like a little misogynist, narcissistic douche. And that's okay. That's a cool character. Referring to the women as whores, and whereas he actually was the one who had chosen to be a sex worker, which is also fine, but then it's weird to for him to be using that other language. Talking about the fickle female opinion, which was interesting because actually then the way the world was explained, the women kind of needed to do the rating as fast as possible and as often as possible in order to survive. So that didn't really, so it's like his view of the world isn't matching the world that's being presented, which is a very interesting kind of conflict. And so what I was hoping to see is, because I love unreliable narrators and I love complex characters, but I was hoping to see a little bit more about like, where is this character going? Because there's a whole lot to really not awesome about that voice, and that's good. But I wanted to see where it was going. I did have a question about that the mother had no cares when she signed the agreement, but she was a pregnant teenager. How's that somebody who has no cares? And also the fact that that was one of the opening statements very early on in that sample, which would indicate that she thought that the reason her son was in danger right now had to do with an agreement she made, but that actually was pretty clear that it was the boy himself who has brought himself into this pickle by being rude to the dates and things like that. So I think there's some stuff that needs to be kind of settled. There's a lot of things that seem to be knocking against one another. Again, can be fantastic, but where's it going?
Mm-hmm. All right, guest judges, that will be Grace, Angela, and Mary. What do you have to say about this last reading and that chapter?
I think he's highly imagined. I was really stunned by his exalted imagination. It's a brilliant mind. I find it was troubling because he did not set up information. This was obviously some biometric novel, but we don't know what SIS is. We don't have a foundation. Fantasy has to be tethered to reality. And in the beginning, we really need a platform to understand, as I say, these biometrics that are going on. I thought the sexual innuendos were gratuitous and didn't think that they helped the story any. I did not like women referred to as dykes and in a pejorative way, but if that has to do with Calvin's personality that we're going to see straighten out, I'm sure.
Mary and Angela? Thank you, Grace.
I thought that the world was really intriguing, and I was curious to watch it unfold and see a story play out in it. One of the things I was kind of wondering about is the very first section we read, the mother was the narrator, and then she was unconscious, and then Calvin became the narrator. And I don't know if that's going to go back and forth or if most of what we read was Calvin. And as KMA was pointing out, he's kind of an unlikable character, which can be a fun thing to do in a book, but it's a little hard on a reader. And so one thing that can help with that is having some sort of a redeeming save the cat moment, they call it, so that sort of early on when you meet him, he does something that lets you go, okay, this guy has the ability to be redeemed. And we see a little glimpse of that in the chapter you sent where the mother's unconscious and Calvin says, don't hurt her, don't hurt her. So clearly he does care for his mother. And maybe that's a piece that could be embellished a little bit more. So I guess I just wanted a little bit of something to hold on to, in part because of some of Grace's comments about the, he's kind of an obscene speaker and that is off-putting and could be offensive. And so having something that makes me think, okay, this guy, I want to hang out with this guy. I want to watch him change. I want to watch him get better, would be helpful for me as a reader.
Angela, did you have anything to say on this one?
I would say interesting. And I think for me, I was kind of trying to grasp it all of kind of what was going on, is what I'll say.
I love how you put that. That's so nice and politically like, there we go. All right, Brandy, do you want to do the deliberation pleasantries this week?
Yeah, sure. All right, judges, it is now going to be time for you guys to put yourselves on mute. You've got about 5 minutes to make your decisions. We will need you to rate each of the people that each of the authors. Make sure that you send the message directly to Wilnona, and we will get let us know who you thought came in best, who showed up best, and also who you felt should be eliminated. And then when the deliberations are over, we will let everybody know what the outcome is.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes from now. All right, since the judges are now deliberating, let's talk to the contestants and see how they felt they did this week. Hey, you can talk about how you felt each other did this week as well. Let's start with how we started. Lisa, how do you feel you did this week? Your strengths, your weaknesses, your co-contestants' strengths and weaknesses?
I think this was a difficult assignment. You know, I mean, like, you didn't give us any parameters, and I'm sure that was by design. You know, I mean, like, I wrote an 86,000 word book and I could have picked out anything. And I think I did okay with choosing something that would kind of continue to build the judge's intrigue of the story. I think Mike is an amazing storyteller, and I've read his work before. And I think Wolf is really good at action scenes. Action scenes are really hard to write, and there was stuff going on, and it's hard to kind of get the logistics of that and kind of keep it moving and pull people in. I mean, like, I think they're both very strong writers.
Dr. Mike, how do you feel you did this week? And what do you think of your I'm really having a hard time saying co-contestants because it does not sound right. Co-workers? Let's go with that.
Co-workers works for me. First of all, I just look at these other two co-workers and think about how I'm so outclassed by the kind of writing skills and the dedication to what it is that they do, that it just blows me away. You know, I have a rather poor work ethic, and I also have difficulty focusing. I'm like excuse the expression, I'm like a fart in a frying pan most of the time. And so I'm just grateful to be in the same consideration as these other two people. I like writing with emotion, and I like writing pictures that you can see when you're reading them. That's really what I go for. What I really want to do is I want to be in the scene with the characters so that I can tell everybody what it is that I'm looking at. And so I was grateful for all of the comments from the judges tonight. They were generous, and I am a little humbled by all of that. But by no means does that diminish what the other two have done, because they're pretty amazing.
Lastly, Wolf, how do you think you did tonight? And how do you think I'm sticking with coworkers, how you feel that your coworkers did?
Well, I told you at the very beginning that for me, this was about feedback, and I got absolutely what I came for. So win or lose, for me, this was a big win. Now, originally, I was going to submit a vampire cat book, but that would have been the easy way out. I mean, everybody loves cats. It would have been a shoo-in. And I wanted it. This is exactly, I picked 100 because it is so controversial. And Mary Helen and Grace said exactly, what I wanted to hear is, how does this work? Does the character come across? And if they still continue to read, that for me would be a big win. And obviously, one area I didn't do a good job because Grace kind of felt the sex was gratuitous. And that was my biggest concern with this book is I need to get across quickly that this book is about sex. They're being trained as consorts. So this is nothing cozy. And I'm still not sure if I should put that more in the blurb or emphasize it more in the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But this book is probably even going to be, well, depending on how I handle the blurb, Amazon may put this under erotica. But given that they're being trained as consorts, it's inevitable. So, and so that didn't come across is a problem. Oh yeah, and I do not envy the judges. The 3 selections were all well written, but so different. How do you even compare them? And I mean, I wouldn't even know. I could not pick among the 3. I really could not.
If it helps for everyone, the judges have done their count. It was tight. Like they decided pretty much down the line, and it was a very interesting thing. I want to say to all of the contestants, every last one of your books are exceptionally wonderful. I already know if I submitted my book and I was not hosting, I would have been gone in the first round. Although I'm hoping if we do a second season of this that I can actually be a contestant. I really would like that. So y'all, let's try to make this thing do great so we can do that. So I can be a contestant. But we do have a winner. And before we go into who is the winner and who is getting eliminated this week, I'm going to ask Brandy one more time to remind us what's on the line, and then we'll go straight into the deliberations and the judges explaining why.
Yes, what is on the line happens to be a traditional publishing contract, what is considered the holy grail for most authors. So, and that is going to one of the 2 people who move on next week's show.
So let's start with the judges. KMA, since you're first on my screen, who did you think did the best and the worst, and why?
You're muted.
There we go. All 3 brought some very interesting, very engaging elements. So thank you so much to all 3 of the writers. I did feel that Mike's work was the strongest, but thinking about the sample and then what was presented tonight, the way, as I mentioned earlier, that the characters were voiced and developed through dialogue and also internal voice. I thought that was spectacular, and I just look forward to what else is going on there. I did feel of the 3 that Wolf's was the weakest, but that has so much to do with, I think, just the piece we're looking at, because Wolf's in particular, we need to see more pieces because what's being developed there is very complicated. When you have kind of a dislikable central character, we want to know more. We have to know more. I really love the suggestion of having a little, what was that, save the cat moment? And there was a little bit of that. But so for me, given what we had to make choices on, I felt that Wolf's was the weakest, but again, with the understanding that that's because I think more pieces were needed to get a sense of what Wolf was really going after in that story.
Deborah Franklin.
I hate going second because KMA, she just does it all. She gives it all to us. I would have to agree and disagree. Wolf, I really liked his piece, but I had to agree with KMA that we needed some more. And because it was so many things going on, it was like, how does it really go together? But now to go back to what Wolf said, it was still really hard to kind of put all these things together, because it was like you got so many, three so distinct different pieces. Lisa, I felt was gave me the pacing. Some of you had a problem with the text messaging. Let me throw this out here. I actually teach high school, so I got it. I got it immediately. I was like, yep, it sounds like something. So that part jumped out to me, because I started to think about young readers, how they would read that part and they would get it. So it's like I visually saw it. And I said, I think that's probably why I got it so fast and knew what was going on. So that it sparked that for me, is a piece that I could really use to like bring them into reading, because it looks like what they do. Now you probably use a little bit more words in the text message, but I knew what was going on. And then Dr. Mike, as always, he just brings it to us, and of course his delivery of it. And so it was really hard to choose between the three. So that's it for me.
Stephanie Larkin.
All three were just fabulous, and I loved getting it in advance. So thank you, and I'd love it if you keep sending us things in advance so I get a little preview. But no, I see that's not a thing. I totally agree with our judges. Dr. Mike loved hearing two different sections, and that was something that I really loved with Lisa, getting to read the chapter and then getting to hear a totally different section. And Wolf, that was something that I really felt I was missing, because I really wanted to hear the other section, to hear where this was going. So that was a huge help, that I got to hear a little bit of this section and a little bit of that section. Dr. Mike, love the way you're going with your characters, and I definitely am turning those pages and wanting to know what's going on more. Lisa, same. I want to know what's going on more. And Wolf, I want to read the book. That's for sure. You make it so hard because we're supposed to be judging on this one assignment, which is so, not the way the book goes. But we as publishers know we get these random manuscripts like every day, and that's what we're supposed to do. So I'm going to vote that I want to read all three books. That's for sure. But as far as this week's assignment, I think that Dr. Mike followed the assignment very well. So thank you so much for giving me two different excerpts that really nailed it. But everyone, your books are going to be amazing, and I can't wait to read them.
Kim Davis.
Okay, I'm going to buck everyone's trend here and vote for Wolf as my first choice. I loved his ability to pack information into a sentence. He's very good at packing a lot of information into a sentence and cramming a lot in there. I think I like his story because it's unique, because it's complex. And I didn't choose some of the others because I was hearing tropes and things that I'm familiar with and I knew, and it wasn't fresh and different as Wolf's is. Wolf's to me was fresh and different. What I didn't like, I will caution about this. I didn't like the fact that Wolf gave us the same material over and over again. And then when I go and look at his website, it's the same material again. So I don't like all that recycled material. I don't feel it's, I question that. That's the only thing.
Okay. Wow, you did some real research. You looked at the website. Now there's a thorough judge. Okay. So now we're going to start with our guest judges that change every week. And this week, our guest judges brought to us a lot of like the reader's kind of flavor or the academic literature side as a reader. So I'm looking forward to hear the reader's take on this. So let's start with what I've been starting with all evening. Let's start with Grace.
Boy, these three all deserve to be published. And maybe the publishers will open their doors and open their hearts and welcome them all in. I did choose Mike as the first because although it was both Mike and Lisa were more formulaic, they had a grasp on the they had a grasp on the clarity. I thought Wolf was the most highly imagined. I chose him last, but I thought he was the most highly imagined and the most ambitious and the most original of all the writers. However, when you grasp that high, you have an obligation to make the platform for the material, and that platform was not there. I didn't understand I didn't understand that they were going to be concerts. I didn't understand the biotech part of it, and that could have been done in one paragraph. Lisa, when I read your chapter, there's just one flaw I saw in it, and it was when the character heard a noise downstairs and said, here we get a body who's matted with blood, and the character says, they hear a noise, maybe that person wasn't really dead, or there's someone else in the house. So it's impossible to think that person was not really dead after that description. So that was the only flaw I saw in your writing. I do consider Mike first and Lisa second, and Wolf, I think you're the most ambitious, but I think you have the most work to do, actually.
That often comes with ambition.
It's highly imagined. He's brilliant. It's just that with that, he has an obligation to make it more, give us more tethers to reality that we can understand.
All right, Mary.
I think I agree with what everyone has been saying. I don't know that I have a ton to add, except I just want to say what an honor it was to hear all these stories and read these stories, and you all are doing a beautiful job, and I'm just super impressed.
Last, Angela Anderson from Angela Anderson Presents.
I have to agree with a lot of the things that was said on tonight. It's definitely for me, Mike did come in first for me, again, just with the it being intriguing, it pulling me in, the descriptions, all of that good stuff of me wanting to, read more. Definitely Lisa would come next for that. Wolf, it was great, but I think for me, I like to have that clarity if I can look at it from the reader standpoint, if I'm kind of confused or a little inkling of confused, or I'm feeling in my mind that there is more, or that there's something missing, that or what have you, or if I'm reading it and the editor hat start coming on, it's like, okay, maybe this is not as polished, if this makes sense, if I'm kind of having all those questions in my head, or what have you. So that would be what I would say.
Okay, all the judges have spoken. Brandy, will you tell us who won and who lost this week?
Well, it is my honor to let Dr. Mike know that you officially won this round. So congratulations to you, Dr. Mike, a well-deserved win. Hands down. Wolf, I hate to say it, but this week you were the one who got eliminated. We have enjoyed having you on the show. We have enjoyed hearing your work. And I do encourage you to finish. I think there's a lot of really positive things and positive potential for your work in the future. You just didn't quite make it for our judges. So thank you, though, for joining us.
I don't normally do this. I'm going to jump in as the host, and I'm going to say that I love the fact that you came out, you did what I would have done. You came out the gate swinging. Like you could have chose a different story, as you said before, and you just were like, I'm coming out here and I'm going to be like 1-2 punch. And it takes a brave person to come out swinging. Now I have to ask the question, which I feel horrible about, but I have to ask the question, if you could go back, was there anything you would have done different? And did you learn anything from this experience?
Yeah, it's the feedback was excellent. And I had some similar concerns, as KMA said. This is a very complex story, and I know from my beta readers that they want to see where this is going in the first chapter, and setting up that many threads in the first chapter is hard. It's already quite long, and I'm still not sure how to pack more in there without making it drag. You know, because I mean, I had to get the love interest in there. I had to get the villain in there. I had to get the other 3 boys in there because they matter. They do form this fellowship, and the fellowship is going to matter in the end. And the big backdrop isn't even in there other than this one line. The bomb hints at the war and the revolution to come. So that is, I mean it. It is as complex as War and Peace.
Thank you so much, Wolf. We're so sorry to see you go. Thank you, the other contestants, Lisa and Mike. It looks like you two will be heading off last week as the finalness. Let me do that one more time. So when I edit, I actually have a correct pronunciation in there. It looks like Lisa and Mike will be heading off in the last week as the finalists. And I want to thank our judges and guest judges for being here tonight. And I want to remind you, next week is the last week of the reality show. And in that week, there will be one traditional publishing contract up for grabs. Also, remember that the other publishers here, if you want to put in your bid to go against the one traditional publishing contract, you also can bid for that story. And for the authors here, you can say yes or you can say no. So next week shall be a very interesting high drama week. Stay with us, audience. So this has been about writing reality, but I knew I was going to mess that line up. Never mind. The show is the reality of writing. I'll go back later and put the first part in. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and we'll see you for the final week next week.